Hello and welcome to College Credit Coach. My name is Tammy, and here at College Credit Coach, we are striving to help kids of any age earn college credits before they ever take a college course. And today I'm here with my oldest son, Joshua, and we're going to talk a little bit about the College Composition CLEP test. Before we start with some of the details and his thoughts on the test, I want to remind you that there's two English CLEP tests. There's the College Composition CLEP test, and there's the College Composition Modular CLEP test. Now, the first one requires that the student write 2 essays, and then the modular, there is no essays. So what I would suggest that you do is make sure and check with your testing centers before you ever start studying for either of those English CLEP tests. Check with your testing centers and make sure they administer the College Composition CLEP test, because it takes certain software to administer that test, and not all testing centers have that software. So you want to know that one first, and then the second, you want to make sure with your local college, or the college that you plan on submitting your transcripts to for CLEP credits, you want to make sure that that college will be taking and accepting College Composition CLEP tests for credits. So with that in mind, we'll start and we'll talk to Joshua a little bit about, can you just tell us a few details of how the College Composition CLEP test is different than some of the other CLEP tests?
Yes, so like you said, I took the College Composition test, just not the modular form. There's 2 main sections. The first section was multiple choice questions. There was 50 of them to be answered in 55 minutes. In the second section, I had to write 2 essays. The first one was persuasive essay, where I had to choose a position and defend and support it. I had 30 minutes to write that essay. The second essay was similar, if I remember correctly, in terms of persuasive, but there were 2 sources. And I believe I cited both of them briefly in my essay. There was 40 minutes for that one. So all total in the essay section, you have 70 minutes, but it's broken down into a time limit for each essay.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more how we prepared for the essays in just a little bit further on in the video. I'll ask you some different questions. Okay, so moving on to question number 2 then. How is the College Composition CLEP test scored? Do you remember how that was scored?
So just like the other CLEP tests, it's they take your score and they plug it into some formula or something, and they give you a score between 20 and 80, with 80 being the highest. They also scored the essays on a scale of 1 to 6, but they just plug that right into their formula to give you a score of 20 to 80, right, just like a normal test.
Right, so you're given a score, and you don't see this score, but you have a score for your multiple choice, and then you have a score for your essays. And those 2 are combined together with equal weight to give you 1 score for your College Composition CLEP test. And if you want to see exactly how the essays are broken down as far as score on a scale of 1 to 6, you can look at the College Board website, the College CLEP Board website, and you can see like the description of what they're looking for as they score it. Okay?
And I believe the REA CLEP study guide book and maybe even Modern States discuss that too.
Okay. And then how many credits do you earn for the College Composition CLEP test?
Yeah, each college decides that, so it sort of depends. Most colleges do at least 3, and I think 3 is a pretty standard number, at least for most CLEP tests. Some colleges, we've heard, will award more than 3 credits, up to 6, I believe it was, if you score above a certain level on the test.
Yep.
Above a certain score.
Right. Okay. And then talk to us a little bit about the different curriculums, textbooks that you use to prepare for the CLEP test.
Yes, so we used the Institute for Excellence in Writing's SICC curriculum to prepare for essay writing, and I had to modify that a little bit just because, while I think it's a great curriculum, it's not super fast, for at least the way I work and thought through it. So I had to modify that a little bit just to fit in the time limit. To get practice writing essays, quite a lot of them, we used the 501 writing prompts. My mom would just select those, and we'll discuss that in a minute. I did the Modern States videos from the Modern States websites. I only did the videos, I didn't do the writing. I also did the REA CLEP study guide book and the practice tests in there, along with the Petersons.com tests. And I might have done those on the Petersons app, but it really, as far as we know, is no different in terms of the actual questions that are given.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about the essays now. Tell us about the first essay and then the second essay. I mean, I know you told us some of the details, but what kind of questions will they ask? And then how I would practice using the 501 writing prompts. How would we practice that?
Yeah, very simple. We just picked, my mom picked some for the 501 writing prompts. She would pick a writing prompt. We'd set a timer, and then I would write an essay. And that helped me get a feel for what I had to do to fit my essay into the time frame. So we just made it as realistic as possible.
And what was your layout of your essays that might help them?
Yeah, so in order, like I mentioned earlier, to fit my essays in the time limit, I found that I didn't have enough time to go through and write a keyword outline for each sentence that I wanted to write. I just had enough time to kind of give maybe some ideas for an intro. I know I listed I usually do 3 points to get a roughly 5-paragraph essay: intro, point 1, point 2, point 3, conclusion. So I usually write 3 points, maybe 2 if I couldn't think of a third, and just make the 2 a little bit longer. And then they give you scratch paper, so I did this with pencil and paper. And then I would fill in the sentences underneath each point as I went. And you can adapt that a little. If you think of a really good sentence under one point, you can just scribble that in quickly, or scribble that key thought in a couple keywords. 2 additional thoughts were you want to be very clear about your opinion. So I don't remember for sure, but I think I said that right in the introduction, if I remember right. You don't want to be hemming and hawing or leave your reader uncertain about which opinion or a side of the issue you chose. You want to be very specific and extremely clear. You also want to watch your time and not make sure you run out of time. And I think I already mentioned that once, but that's very important, as it closes you down and submits your essay when your time runs out.
Okay. And one thing I really encouraged Joshua was, no matter what question he was asked, just to take one side or the other. And even if it was a side he really doesn't agree with, whatever side he could argue with or persuade the strongest, take that side and go with it quickly to get your 2 or 3 supporting items real quick and be done.
One other thing I would mention that I just thought of is that I also remember using some other information on some of these issues. I don't remember exactly what my 2 issues were, but I just remember I had some previous experience in at least one of them. And so I used a little bit of my past experience and knowledge to help me write that essay as well.
Let's talk about the second essay because of the citations. They're a little bit more tricky, and another thing to think about when you're writing your essays and what the scorers are looking for in essays. So talk a little bit about the citations that you had to figure out how to use.
Yes, I cited both in my essay, quite briefly as I remember. And I don't remember if this was ALA or MLA or, there's many citing formats, but I just had there in parentheses after I cited this, after I paraphrased or quoted the sources, I had parentheses and I just had the author's name, comma, and the year. And that's just the best of my recollection. I would definitely make sure that whatever you use is a standard ALA, MLA, or one of those, etc. type things.
We did a lot of research trying to figure out what citation we had to use. And on the College CLEP website, the College Board website, it's not very clear at all what kind of citations are required. And so with all the research, we came up with that. And so that's what we did in ePass. So it was parentheses at the end of either paraphrase or direct quote with the last name of the author, comma, year, parenthesis, and a period at the end then. Okay, so we talked about the essays. Then talk about what practice tests you used to prepare for the multiple choice part of the test.
For the practice questions, there was a whole bunch of practice questions on the Modern States website. Like I mentioned, the practice questions in the REA book, study guide, and then Petersons.com practice questions. I think practice questions was all they had for this test. Sometimes they'll have videos, but just practice questions for this particular test.
Okay, and this is such a unique test, so tell us a little bit about how you were feeling during the test. You got through the multiple choice, and then you got to the essays. Just tell us a little bit of the process and how you're thinking and how you're feeling as you're going.
Yeah, I was pretty focused during the test. But I remember after the test, and my family commented on this too, I seemed really exhausted. Like I mentioned, it's 55 minutes for the multiple choice questions, and then it's 70 minutes for the essays. Now, obviously, if you're fast, it doesn't have to take that long, but that winds up being a pretty long test. And I usually don't get too tired after a CLEP test, but I was pretty exhausted after that one. So I would say, the obvious things: good night of sleep. You might get hungry over that time, so eat at a smart time, and just be prepared for a little bit longer of a struggle, if you will.
All right, so we're kind of wrapping all that up. Are there any thoughts that you have for future test takers about what you would want to do?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple notes at the end of my test just on subjects.
Okay.
One interesting note that I had was usually for all the other CLEP tests, it's just a question and an A, B, C, D, usually about 4 options, and then you just click on the one you want, just like any other test. One interesting thing that they had in the college composition multiple choice questions is for some of the questions you could click on the words, and that was the only option. So they had a sentence, and I don't remember if it was, pick the verb or whatever the sentence was, but you had to select the word in the sentence. So it wasn't like a little bubble you would click on. It was the actual word in the sentence.
But was there like an A above the word, B
Not
above
that
the
I
word?
recall.
Oh, okay, so just clicking on the word.
I think they had each of the options underlined in the word.
Okay.
But they just showed the sentence on screen, and you had to click on the word.
Good to know.
And it looks like you could also select no error. So it was probably a sentence of which word is wrong or no error. I wrote, for revision skills, study a little extra on sentence level things, including opening and connecting words. Revision and rhetorical analysis are very similar. For source materials, know parts of a citation, what they are and what they mean,
Okay.
how to interpret dictionary entries, and maybe when to use citations. Now, on the essay side of the exam, read question and sources, make an outline, and I discussed that earlier, that's what I was referring to, and cite both sources simply. Always watch your time, especially for me, because I tend to take a little longer, so consider your personality. And at least in the exam, the version of the exam I took, there were no complicated citation questions, but there were at least 1 or 2 simple ones.
Okay. And it's worth noting, one odd thing to mention is that the essays are typed. So you do have to have a little bit of typing experience. That would be helpful at least, because you're not writing, you are typing. And if you're a slow typer, that could really hinder you. I think you're a medium typer. I don't know. But anyway, just something else to consider.
Yep. And I believe that there was a timer on the computer. Otherwise, if you can't find the timer, or if I'm wrong about that, you definitely want to have a stopwatch or a clock on the wall or something, but you don't want to, it'll time you out and end you when you're done. If this test had a motto, it would probably be stick in there. It's a long test, like I mentioned, and then you don't get your score back for a week or 2 or something like that. So, and I believe the multiple choice score is also withheld until they give you a final score, which they emailed to us, I believe.
Okay. So that kind of wraps up all of our information about the College Composition CLEP test. We would love to hear from you. If you would comment down below and tell us, your experience is taking the College Composition CLEP test, or if you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. And so we will just see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Good luck.
Good luck.
You'll need it.
You'll need it. All right.